hazards on a construction site, some obvious and others hard to detect. Your ability to identify site hazards and assess the danger is vital not only to your own safety, but to that of your workmates. Now let's examine a range of common construction site hazards and look at the measures you can take to help reduce the risks. Poor housekeeping is often found to be the cause of accidents at work. Protruding pipes, exposed nails and reinforcing rods, electrical cords near water or equipment left lying on the ground. By simply noticing these hazards and either removing the problem or repairing or reporting it, you'll be helping to prevent accidents. Never underestimate the hazards associated with poor housekeeping. And don't simply assume that somebody else will come along and clean things up. Housekeeping is everybody's responsibility. Remember to keep platforms, floors, roadways, work and access areas clear. Store tools, equipment and materials tidily and in their appropriate areas. Never block fire extinguishers, emergency exits or first aid stations. And if you make a mess, then remember to clean it up immediately. Even if you're only a couple of meters off the ground, an awkward fall could cause serious injuries or even result in your death. There are many height hazards you need to guard against. Openings such as holes in floors, gaps on working platforms, shafts and stairwells must be covered over, barricaded or fenced off. Before starting work, check your clearance from any overhead power lines. Don't take risks. Discuss awkward access situations with your supervisor. Always choose the most suitable equipment for the job and the particular site and access conditions. In the case of elevated work platforms, make sure they're situated on firm, level ground. If the unit is fitted with outriggers, make sure these are properly extended and chocked before raising the platform. Always wear a safety harness secured to the platform by a short lifeline. You must also exercise great care when working from scaffolding. Scaffolds must be fully boarded, and guardrails and toe boards must be in place. Before commencing work, inspect the scaffold and make sure it's safe. When using a ladder, make sure you have both hands free for climbing. Carry tools in a belt or shoulder bag and hoist equipment up to the work area. The ladder must be placed on a firm, level surface. Secure the ladder at the top and at its base where practical. And don't stretch in order to reach something. Climb down and move the ladder instead. Your ladder must be correctly angled to minimize the risk of slipping outwards. As a rule of thumb, the ladder should be 1 meter out to every 4 up. Rest the ladder against a solid surface and make sure it extends over 1 meter above the landing platform. When working at height, also be conscious of the safety of those below you. Toe boards, mesh infills, screens, or other means of stopping falling objects should be installed. Be especially cautious when you're working on a roof. There are many hazards. Roofs made of fragile materials, roof lights and roof openings, sloping and slippery surfaces. Stay alert to the hazards and always take great care. It only takes one false move for disaster to strike. Because our bodies are made up mainly of water, they make excellent conductors. Electricity adopts a path of least resistance, and you could easily provide that path if you don't take care. Keep an eye out for electrical hazards, cracked or faulty insulation, equipment that is overheating, damp or humid conditions. Always adopt safe work practices when dealing with electricity. Remove metal wristwatches, jewelry, and belts with large metal buckles. Make sure you wear non-conductive footwear. Before starting work, check to see that your tools are clean and in good shape. Your electrical equipment should be thoroughly inspected by a competent person on a regular basis, and records maintained of these inspections. Remember to keep power cords well away from heat sources, wet areas, sharp objects, and other places where they could be damaged. Run cables at height or underground to prevent them from being damaged. When working near live power cables, ideally use non-conductive wooden or fiberglass ladders. Remember to keep as far away from power lines and electric cables as possible, especially in damp conditions. Trip or earth leakage devices cut the current if contact is made with any live part. These devices should be in place and checked on a regular basis. The potential for a fire to break out on a construction site should never be underestimated. Even small fires can be costly in terms of damage and delay. So what exactly should you as an employee or a contractor do to help reduce the chance of fire occurring? For a start, you need to be on the lookout for possible fire hazards, such as electrical wiring defects, flammable vapors and dust, accumulated rubbish or flammable liquid spills, and hot work activities. When carrying out hot work, make sure wherever possible that it happens in designated areas where no fire risk exists. There should be no combustible material in the near vicinity, and check to see that firefighting equipment is close by. Remember that good housekeeping and the proper disposal of rubbish and waste material is a vital part of any fire safety program. You must also know what to do in a fire emergency situation. Remember to follow the site's fire response procedures. Keep your head, and above all, don't panic. Know where fire extinguishers and hose reels are located. It's important to use the right type of extinguisher on burning material. Ordinary combustible materials such as wood, paper, and textiles are best extinguished by using water. In the case of flammable liquids, use foam extinguishers to smother the flames. Carbon dioxide extinguishers are good general purpose extinguishers and are ideal for use on electrical fires. Powder extinguishers can also be used on electrical fires, but are not as effective on wood and paper fires as water. Do not use water or foam extinguishers on an electrical fire. You could electrocute yourself. If the fire alarm goes off, then immediately stop working and evacuate to the assembly point. Remain at the assembly point until everyone is accounted for and the all clear has been given. The tools and equipment you use must be kept in safe working order. Make sure you choose the right tool or piece of equipment for the job and check it thoroughly before use. With machinery, it's a good idea to have a written pre-operation checklist, which you should go through before commencing work. If any faults or problems are identified, then immediately get these attended to. Don't attempt to operate faulty equipment. Special care must be taken when working with or near hoists and mobile cranes. Complacency concerning their safe use will often end in disaster. Also, stay alert to the movement of site vehicles. Wear high visibility clothing when working with mobile plant, or if you're near roadways. It may be mandatory on your site for all personnel to wear high visibility clothing. Always travel at a safe speed. The tasks you undertake every day will normally involve wearing some form of personal protective equipment. PPE, as it's commonly called, may include items such as gloves, protective eyewear, safety harnesses, and so on. When working on a construction site, it is essential that you wear a hard hat and steel-capped safety boots. Because construction sites are often very noisy, you must also make a point of wearing adequate ear protection. Whenever you wear PPE, don't let it give you a false sense of security. The hazards are still out there. By wearing PPE, you're just limiting your exposure to those hazards. You must therefore make sure that other control measures are in place to help reduce the risks. When choosing PPE, make sure it matches the hazard. It should fit correctly, be comfortable, and it must be compatible with other items of PPE. Whenever you work with chemicals or other hazardous materials, you must always exercise caution and care. Get into the habit of first checking for any warning signs on the container label. If you need more information or are unfamiliar with the material, then ask your supervisor for a copy of the relevant COSH assessment and safety data sheet. These contain information about how to use, handle, and store the chemical safely. If you're not sure about how to handle or work with any hazardous substance, then don't take the risk. Ask your supervisor and find out before it's too late. Remember that hazardous materials may enter your body by being absorbed through your skin or eyes, by being inhaled, or by being ingested when you swallow. Make sure you also know what to do in the event of a hazardous materials accident occurring on the site. Groundwork can be extremely hazardous. Trench collapse, objects falling onto people, vehicles or personnel falling into the excavation, undermining of nearby structures. Proper precautions must be taken at all times. Never be tempted to take shortcuts. The risks are simply too great. Always excavate using safe digging practices. Prevent trench collapse by either reducing the slope of the trench walls or installing a suitable support system. Store excavated spoil, plant or materials well away from the sides of excavations. Always make sure you know where the underground services are before you start to dig. At the beginning of your shift, check for evidence of slides or cave-ins. Excavations should be barricaded and prominent warning signs displayed. Entry into a confined space can be one of the most hazardous activities a construction worker has to face. Be aware of the confined spaces which may exist on site. Generally, there'll be areas with limited openings for personnel to enter and exit, and are not designed for regular occupancy. They may be areas which contain or cause an accumulation of atmospheric hazards. They may also have a deficiency or oversupply of oxygen. Confined space entry is a specialized field requiring detailed training and a thorough understanding of the appropriate work and safety practices. Don't attempt to enter a confined space unless you're fully trained and know what you're doing. As a construction worker, you're particularly vulnerable to ultraviolet exposure, and you must make a point of regularly checking all parts of your body for skin cancer. Be sun smart. Place a neck protector under your hard hat. Wear clothing made of closely knit material and shirts that have long sleeves and collars. Also make a point of applying sunblock to exposed areas of skin prior to working outside. As a construction worker, you also need to guard against extremes of cold and heat. In cold conditions, wear several layers of clothing instead of a single heavy outer garment. Make sure you keep your fluid intake up in both cold and hot conditions, and stay alert for signs of physical distress. Your back needs to be treated with care. Just one injury and you could be afflicted with back problems for the rest of your life. Wherever possible, save your back by using mechanical aids to move loads. A key to proper lifting is to keep the three curves of your back in their natural positions. Always adopt the following essential steps. Stop and think. Plan the lift by checking the weight of the load. Are there any suitable mechanical aids which could be used? Stand close to the load with feet apart so that you have a balanced, stable base for lifting. Do not bend your back. Bend at the knees and keep your back as straight as possible. Get a firm grip and move the load close to your body. Don't jerk the load, lift it smoothly. Always keep your arms and the load close to your body. And when turning, use your feet rather than twisting the body. When carrying out a team lift, make sure that one person gives clear instructions during the lift.
1, 2, 3, lift.
Remember when lifting to use any available support, and don't try to act the hero. If there is any potential risk to your back, then find a mechanical aid or get somebody to help you. Never compromise the safety of members of the public. Sufficient safeguards must always be in place. For example, protection from falling materials, signs for traffic and pedestrians, barriers, and safe walking surfaces. Store your equipment and materials so they will not cause injury, and make sure there are no tripping hazards. As we've seen in this video, construction site accidents can be prevented if you adopt an attitude of work safety. Don't simply rush into a job. Always take the time to assess a work situation and find ways of reducing the risks before proceeding. If you're new to a job, then you're particularly vulnerable. But even experienced workers need to make safety their #1 priority. Complacency on the job will end in disaster. It just needs that one slip-up to occur, so make sure you stay alert. Let's make every day a safe work day. Think safety.